All right, guys, welcome to Ep.1 of the Dream and Achieve project, where we're talking about business and entrepreneurship. Today on Ep.1, I have Mr. Hazel. He's a good friend, a mentor, and a personal training client for 6 years. What I want to start out with is just some basic questions. What were you doing before you started your business?
Well, I was employed. Of course, I found myself in the printing business through a sequence of events, and I was working for a small print shop for probably 3 years, and I'd actually worked for a manufacturer of printing equipment prior to that. So it led me to the printer, and I really kind of liked that type of sale because when I was selling equipment, it was a kind of a one and done scenario. Mm-hmm. In the printing business, you found a client and they would keep ordering from you. So that was kind of new to me, and I liked that concept. So I went to work for this guy for 3 years and found myself really enjoying the print business. And it was very cutting edge. Technology was really coming into play with print, and so I enjoyed it. I just had an issue at some point with my boss.
So yeah, what made you start your own business? I mean, what was the key thing that kind of made you say, "Hey, all right, I got to do my own thing now"?
Yeah, well, I probably had that inkling all along or at least for years. Like, what would it, be like working for myself? I always felt like I wanted to be able to do that, and it just, opportunity just wasn't ever there. You have that drive, but like, what's it going to be, right? And so, I really felt like I found a niche in the print business without getting into the weeds. I found that the retail print world, I should say retailers, this is kind of the business I would chase, the market. And on the East Coast and West Coast, they typically paid more money for their printing. And so I felt like I could broker the work just out of my basement, right? I could broker it, resell it with my markup, and still be less expensive than what they were buying it for.
So you started in your basement, basically?
Yeah, totally. My one little office in the basement that I set up. I remember, quick story, I remember my kids were yay big, and about a week before I started, I was sitting in there and the kids were standing in the doorway, and I said, "Okay guys, so Dad's starting a business, and so when this door's closed, you really got to make sure you're not making noise, yeah. Right? So look at, like, if the house, for instance, started on fire, I want you to let the house burn down on top of Dad, okay?" They kind of looked at each other.
You were serious.
I was totally serious, but the look on their face was pretty priceless. But yeah, so I just asked myself, could I make a living doing this? That was really the question, because I didn't think about getting rich at all. Yep. I mean, that was never a concept. It was like, could I make a living? Because if I could, then I can go set my own schedule. I could go garden when I wanted to garden. Mm-hmm. There was actually a time when I used to like doing that. Yeah. Until I got a little busy. But go to my kids' games or whatever the case would be.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of do your own thing, kind of have your own time.
Yeah, you had certain, or at least you felt like you'd have certain freedoms by controlling your own destiny.
Well, a lot of people have fear when they start their own business, their own job. Can you speak upon fear a little bit? Did you have some of that when you're starting your own thing? I mean, that's obvious.
Yeah. Well, fear, when people ask me, like, how did you know that it would work, right? And I tell everybody when they ask that, like, it's a really good question, because you really should have that deep inner faith. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can experiment all you want, and you could stumble into some luck, but you really gotta have a passion for what you're gonna do, and then you really gotta feel like you're gonna make it. And I just felt like I just knew that I knew that it would work. Yeah. And so that was there, but fear creeps up with it too. So you kind of got to discern which is which. Did all of a sudden I lose my faith, or is just fear whispering in my ear? And fear is the enemy. I declared war on fear a long time ago. Yeah. Seriously, I mean, I literally took an entire morning one day at the office when I moved out into an office and started journaling all my fears, right? And I started living through them in my mind, like, what's it like to be broke? What's it like to die early, right? With my family around me, all those weird, crazy thoughts. So when I walked through all those, like, I felt like just when I addressed them, that I could actually overcome them. This is a good piece of advice, I think, for listeners when it comes to fear. Like, fear can grip you to the point where if you just listen to your self-talk, if you journal it and then read it, they're really irrational thoughts.
Yeah.
They're rational to you when you're thinking them, right? But when you just look at the mathematic equation to them, like, you start to go, wow, that really is a silly thought. I was fretting something that maybe been a 1 in 1,000 chances of actually happening.
Yeah.
So you really, like, that would be, you know, a great concept for you to work at. Like, I'm scared, I'm freaking out right now. Journal it, and then put on your analyst hat and just ask yourself, is this actually a rational thought?
I like that.
You're going to have fear, right? You just kind of got to, you know, I guess that's what courage is for, right?
Yeah.
You just work right through it.
Yeah. And you always hear people talking about success and how it's not a one street road, or, you know, you're not going a straight line. There's failures along the way. Did you have any failures as you were kind of starting your own business?
Well, I mean, nothing's easy, right? Mine, I have to confess, I've been pretty lucky. I probably haven't been challenged. I've made money every single year I've been in business. I've been in business for 20 years. Out of the 20 years, we've had a record year, 19 out of the 20.
Pretty damn good.
So, but, you know, there's massive challenges along the way. Like, you feel like, you know, as an entrepreneur, like, I feel like there's like this common bond in the core of entrepreneurs. Like, I lost all my clients today. I'm broke.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to start over, right? Yeah. So no matter how much money I have, I'm broke, right? That's, you know, that fear of being broke, that, you know, you just kind of just keep trudging through that. And
with that, I mean, you're always looking ahead, right? I mean, you're searching
at the
for
same
new
time
clients.
Still looking ahead and listening to what, you know, you're paying attention to what the market's telling you to do, right? Because you don't have a crystal ball.
Yeah.
The Steve Jobs of the world's, you know, they don't have crystal balls too. You know, Steve Jobs, I heard Steve Jobs say one time, you know, look, if you guys knew how many times I failed, I would be embarrassed, right? Yeah. So you just, you know, like you know, people would say like, wow, you've lived this charmed life of being self-employed, because I've had success and to a relatively large degree, and you got to get lucky. I mean, random luck plays a part in it, right? You can't really factor that into it, but you know, so
the universe comes back to you in some way if you're putting in hard work and dedication into what you're trying to do.
Yeah, but I've
noticed that too.
It does, right? That's, you know, the laws of reciprocity. There's all sorts of things. You know, if you put in the effort, it comes back. But it's not always true. But I have been, honestly, like I've been far from perfect in many ways. But the thing I've really been brilliant at is I've taken chances. Like, I listen carefully. Like I would notice, like, okay, the market is telling me to do something here, right? Mm-hmm. And so you kind of have to, like, be able to recognize those moments. Yeah. Right? So for anyone who's out there listening to this, who's afraid to make a move, like, you know, there's a fucking 1,000 small business guys who just can't get to the next level because it's born out of fear. Like, you gotta take those chances. You know, the thing is, here's what's interesting. Like, every time I did that, I would go down this path, right? Mm-hmm. And I always feel like, well, the Lord pushed me down this path, right? Mm-hmm. Like, and this was like the magical path. Yeah. Now, if I never shared it with you, you would say like, oh, you were brilliant to go down that path. It's like, well, I got to confess, I went down this path and I got shoved over here, but I was willing to go, oh, you're shoving me over here, right?
Bounce back.
Well, you just get lucky with that. But the point of it is, like, if I didn't travel down this road, then I would have never been shoved down this road. Yeah. So I had to start walking down that path, right? Yeah. And you got to make good calls along the way. There's competence. Like, people go out of business all the time because they're just grossly incompetent. But you gotta have those moments. But, you know, for listeners who are wondering, you know, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, maybe they're wondering if they should make a move, or maybe they're small business guys who are trying to get it to the next level. Mm-hmm. You know, you're not going to have that crystal ball, but you've lived the experience now. Like, so you're listening to what the market's telling you, right? Mm-hmm. If you listen carefully, it doesn't ever scream at you; it whispers to you, right? Find it, and so the world is loud, and you got to make time to listen to that. Yeah. But even if you're wrong, like, so my experience is I went left because I felt like the market said go, right? And I've been right plenty of times, but I've been wrong plenty of times.
Yeah.
But when I went down the path wrongly, the market just said, hey, no. It shoved me over here, right? It said, you're going down the wrong path, right? And luckily, I got shoved on the right path. But miraculously, like, I would have never been shoved down the right path had I not taken a path.
Yeah.
If I'd have sat still and said, no, I don't want to make any moves, it's too risky, right? So risk, if you want to grow a business, you definitely going to have to take risk, and you're going to have to address fear. What I used to do, because my business is highly equipment intense, there's probably $30 million worth of equipment on the floor, and you can blow that too, right? So I always just said, when I want to go down a new market or something, like, I had asked myself, could this break me? At the worst case scenario, if I'm completely wrong, will this break me? And if the answer is no, and I really felt like the market was talking to me, I'd make my move.
Yeah.
Right? I would, you tend to land on your feet even when you're wrong. Yeah. Right? You just don't make moves that will break you.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure. Yeah.
That's been at least my motto, right?
Yeah. For sure. So as far as money, like starting your business, did you have a cushion when you started, or how did you go about getting the funds to start the business ultimately?
Well, I didn't have much of a cushion, right? So when I started talking to my wife about that, she said, well, let's have 2 years worth of cushion built up. And at first I said, sure, let's do that. Yeah. And then I got antsy, right? Yeah. And so I got an itch, and I needed to scratch it. And, and her parents were begging me not to do it. And she was pretty much begging. I remind them of this. Yeah. So,
I hear it all the
time. What happened was, it's like, it didn't require a lot of money. I was a broker, so everybody's business is different, right? So I was going to buy print and resell it, right? And there's fixtures. It's print and display business that I'm in, but I lined up who my vendors were going to be. I picked the best of the best, right? Yeah. And I sat down with them just like this and said, look, I have clients. I'm going to have more clients. Just give me really good terms. Can I get net 90, right? They gave me net 90. I would pay them. If I got paid in 20 days, I'd pay them. So I wanted to be a good client as well, right? Yeah. So I paid all those guys quickly, but that was basically like the bank financing me. Yeah. And didn't require. I always charged enough. And one thing I knew that I needed to do to grow a business is I had to have enough margin. I had to be, and that's where fear, I think, overcomes a lot of people in businesses. They're too scared to charge a rightful amount of money, right? Yeah. So they're, I call it like they're charging enough to make a wage, but not a profit. Yeah. You got to charge a wage and a profit. Gotcha. Right? Yeah. And you got to feel like, you got to know your market, but you got to have the courage to do that, right? Because you need money to grow a business. Something has to fund it.
I mean, a support system too is huge. Your wife and kids were probably all about it. You said your in-laws really weren't. How do you...
I better be careful that they don't watch this.
How do you deal with those struggles, people not believing in you, I guess?
Well, it kind of eggs you on a little bit, right? Yeah. You're going to show them, right? Exactly. And so, that can't be your motivation, but it doesn't hurt. It's a drive for sure. It's an additional inspiration for sure.
So, what is one thing at the end of the day that makes you, come back and want to be better every day in your business? Keep striving towards success.
Well, probably, two things probably come to mind. First was, I knew what I wanted to do when I started this business. I really wanted to wow my clients, right? I wanted them to, tell their sister and their sister's boyfriend and, everybody just how great a service and what kind of product they were getting from me. And that was just critically important to me. I really wanted to wow them. And over time, all of a sudden, I started acquiring employees, right? So I'm up to 648 employees, I think the number is. And I learned early on that I had to wow my employees too, right? Yeah. So that, it's just a serving thing, right? The serving, so I guess my answer to you would be, I just want to serve, right? Yeah. That's what keeps me going. Nice. I can get bored at times. I can get... when you have 648 employees, you become, sometimes you think all you are is one big HR department, right? Like, let me tell you, like it's taken a good many men down, right? Just dealing with the HR issues. But so you remind yourself what, the difference. Like, just like I tell my kids, if you want some sort of sweet satisfaction in life, you're never going to get it until you learn how to surf.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds corny.
No, yeah.
But it's paid, I think, dividends to anybody who gets it.
Yeah, it's like loyalty. If you're loyal to your, you said your employees or your clients, they're going to be loyal to you. They're going to tell other people, hey, this guy's really good at what he's doing. So, that goes hand in hand.
Yeah, the loyalty is a serving thing, for sure. Yep.
And as far as, leadership is a huge thing in business, obviously. You're the number one leader in your business. Hiring other people that are leaders too, that's something that's huge to build your business up, is it not?
Yeah, of course. So, especially with employees, I mean, that's the key, right? Mm-hmm. So you can have sales leaders who can be brilliant with the client, right? Yep. But, for me, I learned early on, like when I went to make managers, mm-hmm. Not necessarily is the best sales guy the best sales manager, right? So, and that whole concept throughout. I put people in leadership positions that were really smart. Yeah. But they weren't good leaders, and it killed me. I mean, it's really devastating to put a poor leader in a leadership position. Yeah. Now you have to hire talent, because talent solves really nearly every single thing mm-hmm. in business, in my opinion. But the idea of having the talent but not the leadership and put them in a leadership position will blow up, and it'll blow up every single time. So you got to find a person with both.
Yeah. I like that story you told me about the mining cave with the leaders. That was a pretty good story.
Yeah, that's an interesting story, because so you should be perceptive to that, right? So the story was like there's a leader for every different occasion, right? Like you may if you wanted me to share it again,
go ahead.
Yeah. So the short version is there's a cave in, mm-hmm. and there's people in that cave. I forget how many men, 28 men. And immediately there are leaders who get called to action, right? Mm-hmm. It just comes on them and they do well, right? Yep. They just naturally take over. Yeah. So some of them found their way out in that cave-in, and then others, there's just no real hope, right? The only hope is, these miners would dig for their brothers, at any given moment, right? Yeah. So they know they're trying to be dug out, but food's gone. Like, honestly, they're drinking their urine and the whole concept. And the guys who started the leadership thing started to fail at the leadership thing at that point, right? Then a different type of leader would show up where I could talk you off the ledge, because mm-hmm. you're losing your mind now. It's completely dark. You're drinking your own urine, right? And it's, it sounds dramatic, but I mean, mm-hmm. so as a leader, if you have managers, if you're listening to this, that's really key. Like, is to have that right manager for that right position.
Yeah, that's huge.
And I've learned that I have to say, do I love that person for that position? Yeah. And I'm not hiring them in a leadership role until I can say that.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Well, how has, this is part of this podcast is fitness is a little bit I want to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So like I stated earlier, he's been with me for 6 years as a training
I was supposed to be flexing this right bicep this whole time.
How has fitness helped you in your life? I mean, business, life-wise, anything?
Well, as you know, I'm not, the ideal client. I whine and carry on about working out. But I show up.
Yeah, that's
good. So for me, it's like you hate it. It's like, at least for me, I hate working out every time I do it. Yeah. But every time I'm done, I love it. So I've created a discipline, as you know, to show up. So for me, like you always tell, like I'm always telling you what to do, right? Yeah. I in the end, I always listen to you, but I like to tell you what to do. Yeah. But for to have you there waiting for me. Yeah. Gives me that accountability. Like, that's what gets me to show up. Yeah. So I don't know how people do it without a trainer. And I know you use a trainer as well, right?
I did, yeah. I mean, but how has it helped you in your life? I mean, you sat for 30 years and, do you feel more energy?
Yeah. Yeah, so for sure. So there's a number of things. Like, the stress levels that I can deal with at times gets, when you're sitting all day, which mm-hmm. I did for, like I've told you, so long, like it's like in hindsight, it's just like almost like, like it's just horrible to even think about how much I sat. I literally would walk. I bet I walked a quarter of a mile a day at best.
Yeah.
And I'd be sitting here grinding out right in the office. But it's just made me different. My mind is much clearer. I feel just way better about my own psyche. Is better. My days last way longer. There's all those intangibles that just that give you that bounce in your step. I just feel stronger, energized, and then I know that I'm healthier, right? And I'm sorry, I'm vain. So if I'm not working, I know that I got my diet. And you tell we talk about diet all the time, right? Like diet's still key, but diet. I used to think diet was everything, right? And I could never have to exercise, but it's not true, especially when you get into my age. Yeah. Diet's key, but so is working out, just even from just a caloric burn standpoint. I know, because if for some reason, like when I go on vacation and I'm gone for 3 weeks, besides like losing it fast, I easily can put on weight.
So to end this interview, what I want to ask you is, what is one piece of advice you would leave the listeners with?
Well, I think you should just, if there's people out here listening to, if they're thinking of starting a business, I would tell you, learn your craft for sure. You really need to do that. You can't just do a pie in the sky and think I'm going to go sell print without knowing print, right? And there's 100 people a day that do that, right? And they fail. The percentages of business making it are very slim, because there's people who are not competent in the business they even started. But I would say to them is really, if you really have that inkling to be on your own, right, and you know your craft, fear is going to grip you. But if you just feel like you know that it's going to work, then you make your move, right? You can wrestle with that concept, but just like anything else, the old adage, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You gotta make your move, right? As far as the other piece, I would tell you, if you really want to put in a plug for you, in the whole world of working out, I hate working out, as you know it, right?
This guy.
I do. I work out because my days become longer. I feel way better. My stress levels go way down. I'm just a better person for working out, right? And so for the listener who needs accountability, that's why I have a trainer. I would never do it on my own, right? I know you've used a trainer when you've really had to go do your muscle man contest.
Yeah, when I did a show and got on stage, I had to have a trainer because, like you say, that accountability, telling you exactly what to do, it helps. Yeah.
And I don't mean to embarrass you, but you got to really like your trainer. Is the trainer smart enough not to hurt you? And is he fun to hang out with, or he or she fun to hang out with, right? Because those two things are he's a fun guy to hang out with. That's why I keep doing this. But I wouldn't if you weren't. Honestly, I would just it would just tuck her away. Or I now that I know the value of it, I would just go find a different trainer.
Well, it goes back to do you love your manager in that spot? I'm kind of your manager in fitness.
Well, that's totally true, right? They say people don't quit companies, they quit managers. Well, there's a lot of people don't quit training, they quit their trainer.
Yeah,
right on.
That's good stuff, guys. I think he left you with a lot of valuable content, talking about fear, leadership, things like that. So
hope so. Something in there.
If you guys like it, leave a thumbs up, subscribe, stay tuned for episode 2.